Hello and welcome to the Berkshire Football Stories chat podcast with me, Rob Davies, and Tom Canning can't join us this week, but we have two very able replacements. We have Neil Maskell from Maidenhead United.
Good morning, Rob, and good
And
morning to everyone else.
And Joshua Browne from the Maidenhead Advertiser. Joshua, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. How are we doing, guys? Are we okay?
Yeah, very good, thanks.
Good.
Yeah, we've got a wealth of knowledge on the panel today, so we're going to be covering a wide range of topics. But we're going to start with the midweek fixtures as we tend to do. And Neil, you were actually at one of the games last night on Tuesday night, a local derby or a Berkshire derby between Wokingham Emmbrook and Holyport. Holyport eventually coming out victors 1-0. What did you make of it?
It was an excellent game. 1-0 doesn't sound the most thrilling, but there was chances galore in that game, and it only took a late goal to win it. It looked like it was going to be one of those, 0-0s. You think, how on earth have both teams not scored? I think, in all honesty, talking to Wokingham people afterwards, they agreed that Holyport deserved the win. Holyport had the lion's share of the chances. Really good, clear chances as well. Some good goalkeeping kept them out. But Wokingham had two really good chances at 0-0 as well. Real kind of chances in front of goal. One was scuffed. One was put wide at the far post. And you thought perhaps if they scored first, maybe they would go and sort of snatch it. So they're in a difficult place at the moment, aren't they, Wokingham? That's now 9 league games without a win. They've got a young side, and it's difficult, isn't it, when you get into a spell with games being off and then the form dips. It can be hard to get out of it. There's Hilltop are the one team below them. There's only one team that goes down this year, Rob. I think I'm right in saying. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
So Hilltop are below them, but Hilltop have got games in hand. They've had a Vase run, apparently, Hilltop.
Yes, they have, yeah.
They're tied up in the Vase. But the good news for Wokingham is the teams above them have played more games. They've got games in hand, but they just need to burgle a win somehow, somewhere. They're at Chalfont on Saturday. And I think they're a mid-table side, so that could be the one. I think they were really disappointed. On paper they saw mid-table Holyport as a chance to get something, but Holyport were deserving of the win overall. I don't think there could be any complaints about the result.
So, as you say, Wokingham slightly precarious at the moment. There's only, as you say, only one team below them in Hilltop, and that team is only 1 point behind them. With 4 games in hand. But Chalfont St Peter, 5 points ahead of them actually in 16th, 20 teams in the division, 16th. So 3 places above Wokingham and Emmbrook. And, a win there would really sort of not only help Wokingham and Emmbrook, but probably bring Chalfont into it a little bit as well. So, slightly nervous times, for Wokingham and Emmbrook, but Holyport are actually looking like a reasonable side at the moment. Last season, they were sort of just maybe slightly. They were involved in the relegation battle, but probably pulled themselves out of it slightly earlier than a couple of other teams. And this season, I think their ambition was to be mid-table, come around the halfway point, and see where they can go from there. Well, it's around the halfway point. They're mid-table at the moment. They're currently 12th with games in hand over a lot of the teams above them. And they're actually only 6 points off the playoffs. So it's been a pretty good sort of maybe under-the-radar season for Holyport. Joshua, maybe I'll bring you in on this one.
Yeah. I mean, everything you just said, is true. I mean, that win last night was their 3rd league win in a row. And notably away as well. They've had 3 away games on the bounce, and to win 3 grounds you're not sort of familiar with. I mean, that's pretty impressive at any level of football, isn't it? But you'd have to look at some of their players, sort of chat to them quite regularly, notably Kiki Zimba. It's obviously Maidenhead United fans and the guys over there will be quite familiar with, but he seems to be having a great season. Sort of chatting to them recently, reckoned he sort of scored something like 10 goals and 3 assists in 19 appearances. I mean, that's great return. And also the fact that I think what's helping him as well this season is he's dual registered with Marlow. So he's seen playing a lot of football with them guys as well, or at least been around that environment. So he knows what's demanded, and he's sort of bringing that experience, all those sort of like the minutes he gets there back to Holyport, and it's really helping them tremendously. So yeah, I mean, where they're sitting at the moment is great. I'm sure Sam Lock's really happy with that, and he's sort of probably keeping them grounded, making sure they're not going to get any nosebleeds anytime soon, knowing that they're that close to the playoffs. But yeah, really impressive lately.
So you mentioned 3 away games. They've actually got 3 home games on the bounce now against teams sort of around them in the table, I guess. North Greenford 3 points ahead of them. Ardley level on points with them, and then Harefield actually, perhaps more down to the bottom end. So a real opportunity to sort of maybe just sort of start nudging away towards that top end of the table, and maybe not a playoff position, but certainly a top half finish could be on the cards for Holyport. How do you reckon, Neil, having seen them last night?
Yeah, they played some really good football last night on a bobbly pitch. They had really good width in the side. Really impressed. Last time I saw them was just before or just after Christmas at Reading City, and they ended up on the wrong end of a 5-0. But it was 0-0 when they had 11 men on the pitch. They had a sending off. Second half, the conditions were quite difficult. And Reading are a good side, as we know. So on the basis of that one, you would have thought like they'd be nowhere near it. But I feel for them in a way, because they've had problems, obviously, with getting games on with the pitch at Summerlees, being flooded and problems down there. So they've actually, taken it on the road, haven't they, as we've said, and got those good results. And look, why not? I mean, they keep going. They've got some good young players, a good management team. I thought they really played some good football last night on a quite a boggy, bumpy, wobbly surface. So yeah, why not? They should aim high. I was talking with some of their committee people last night, and they were talking about nosebleeds and being in the top half. Well, why not aim a bit higher? You get that momentum behind you. Kiki scored the winner last night, coming off the bench. They've got some real quality. Pendlebury up front held the ball up well for them as well yesterday. I was impressed with him. They looked a good side. So yeah, let's see how they do. If they get a couple of results in those next 3, then they really are looking upwards, aren't they? Good.
Absolutely, yeah. So certainly a team to keep an eye on for the remainder of the season. See how well they can finish, and hopefully, much improved on last season. Even if they don't reach the playoffs, but the chance is there. So yeah, a good one to watch for the next few months, shall we say? Well, let's move on to another side that played a little bit of midweek football. And Neil, it's a side we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. Last time we were both on the pod, one of our main topics of discussion was can Binfield stay up? And we were sort of all hopeful, but maybe ultimately pessimistic, I think it's fair to say, considering where they were. They were halfway through the season. They only had 4 points on the board. And we sort of all agreed that they had 20 games left. They probably needed 30 points from those 20 games. And the upcoming game against Metropolitan Police was very key because they had some tough fixtures after it. Well, they won that game against Metropolitan Police, getting their first league win of the season. And they backed that up with a home win against Southall, a team who was second in the table, which was quite incredible. Last night didn't go quite as well for them. Playing at home against a very good Westfield side, a team going for the playoffs. They lost 3-2, but they've given themselves a little bit of hope there. Yeah, the performances are certainly improved. And what say you now? Do you still think? Are you still slightly pessimistic, or is there a slight bit of hope returning to the question here?
I think they've got every chance now, haven't they? It's a pity last night they were 2 up, weren't they? I believe
Yes,
in the game last night. That always feels a bit like a missed opportunity, but they're in games. They were before Christmas. They were losing matches against good sides, 9-0s and 8-1s and things like that. They're in games. It's such a pity, even at 2-0 getting back to 2-2, you think, hang in there. So, it's one that's got away, I guess, but that's 2 brilliant wins. Isn't it funny, football? You do nothing all season, and then in the space of a week, you've suddenly got 2 wins where you didn't have anything. The momentum is so big, isn't it? I hope last night doesn't sort of check it a little bit, but they've seemed to have signed well and brought people in and they've got a chance now, haven't they? I think they've got looking at their fixtures here, they've got Hartley Whitney away, haven't they, on Saturday? I don't think they're particularly flying, are they, Hartley Whitney?
They're just outside the playoffs, Hartley Whitney.
They are higher then. It was last season they went down, wasn't it? Okay,
yeah.
Sorry, yeah. So, that's a tough one then.
It is.
But they've just got to. They're in games. That's the main thing, isn't it? They're in games. They were getting hammered in games before Christmas when it looked really bleak. So if they're in games, they've got a chance, haven't they? So it's still, they're in there. They've got a chance. There'll be some teams panicking above them now.
They're still a fair way from safety. I mean, we're looking at 10 points to get to Guernsey, who are in 19th, Binfield in 21st. But they've closed the gap to Corinthian Casuals above them. They're only 3 points behind them now. So, and there's a game against Corinthian Casuals coming up in, I think, 3 matches time for them. So, that's going to be huge.
It's a home game, isn't it?
That's a home game indeed, yeah. So they've got
to win that one.
They absolutely do, but they've got 2 top half table sides before then. So tough run of fixtures, but they just beat the team in second place, Southall. So who knows? They, like you say, they're in games. And they've got a little bit more of an opportunity. So they're giving themselves a chance, I think it is. If we were sat here now saying they'd have lost all 3 games since we'd spoken about them last, I think that would have certainly been a little bit more, we'd have been a little bit more bleak about them now, regardless of performances. But, they've got themselves 6 points. That probably means they still need another 24 or so. But they got the first 6. So, good luck to them. Hopefully they can push on.
Yeah, let's get behind them and see what they can do.
Absolutely. Okay. Further teams that played this week in a slightly different competition. We'll talk about Maidenhead. Normally I come straight to you, Neil, being the expert on Maidenhead. But we also have another expert on Maidenhead here today. So maybe it's best to get a slightly outside view of how he sees the season going. Maidenhead, we'll talk about, first of all, the long-delayed FA Berks and Bucks Senior Cup game. A 4-0 victory on Monday night against Milford. Good result for them in the end, even though, I suppose, Maidenhead were always going to be favourites in that one. Joshua.
Yeah, looking from the outside, I wasn't at the game, but it's a win that Sean Mikulski said at the end is good, just to be a confidence booster for anything. They were favourites going into that game, and I don't think they were likely to lose it unless something went dramatically wrong. But a good comprehensive win, and to see Sean Mikulski on the score sheet, 3 times a hat trick, that's good for him as well. The player has struggled, I think is fair to say, in front of goal occasionally this season, maybe squandering some favourable chances, if that's fair to say. But by all accounts, was at his best this week, and good to see him score, and also a youngster as well. I mean, that's always nice, isn't it, when you see one of the academy boys brought through and get the chance and take it. It's you can see just how much it means to them. So a good result for both, obviously getting further in the competition, closer to some silverware, and also for the players that are involved. It's good to see them in high spirits, isn't it? So that's always
absolutely, yeah. Big tie in the next round. They'll be at home to MK Dons. Any idea when that will be at the moment?
Careless talk on these things is always dangerous. It needs to be played by the end of the month, and if you look at our fixtures, it leaves one date, so I'll let you work that one out. I can't say anything at the moment because obviously waiting for Milton Keynes to just come back to us and confirm. But the BBFA do want it played before the end of the month. It'll be at York Road, and I'm not quite sure what kind of side MK will put out. Obviously, they're going for promotion in League 2. I can't see that the County Cup's going to be a priority for them. So I'm not really sure what they've got in terms of a development team or a sort of under 23s. But I'm sure they've got a big enough squad. And again, it'll be a really good chance, hopefully, for some of those younger players. Aaron O'Brien's academy continues to do well. We've got players, as Josh knows, that have come through that and done well for us. And we had 3 boys starting on Tuesday. One of them, Jaden Dundas, scored. As Josh said, he peeled away when he scored his goal, and you could see that meant the world to him. It was a good finish from the young winger. And it was it was a good night. I enjoy the Berks and Bucks games. It's good to play different opposition, perhaps not quite the same pressure as a league game, should we say? But equally good to have another game, so there's more chance for some of these younger players to make a name for themselves and to impress Dev. So if anyone's thinking about a midweek game and is looking at something for the end of February at the moment, that looks the favourite date, but I can't rubber stamp it quite yet, unfortunately. But we'll look forward to that one when it comes round.
There we go. Yeah, another a league side coming to a Berkshire non-league round is always a big occasion. We've had some great ones over the last few years. You know, Wickham at Ascot, and Bournemouth at Tadley last season was also great. So yeah, hopefully this can be another one of those occasions where we get a good crowd at York Road and have a really good atmosphere. But
yeah, Bracknell were
of course
they beat MK last year, weren't they, in the semi-finals? So there's a bit of precedent there. So
also had Ipswich in the FA Cup last year. So some really big games recently. It's been great. For that regard. But away from the League Cup, Maidenhead had a great win at the weekend. Joshua, another good performance, and Maidenhead looking reasonable in the National League. How do you see their season so far?
Yeah, well, from what I've seen, it's been steady. I mean, they had this lengthy streak, I think, where they didn't lose a match, or they certainly went on quite a positive run. But then when you look at it, also there are a handful of points above the drop zone. So it is a really challenging league. I mean, Alan Devonshire's always maintained that it's one of the toughest leagues in English football. And you can see that more so than ever this season, I feel like, because they had this long streak where they didn't look like they were going to lose any time soon. And then when you sort of do the maths and you think, oh, they're only a handful of points above things. But they've just got to keep going, and that win, obviously, at the weekend is a big one. Just again, a confidence booster. And I saw when Josh Kelly scored, I thought, oh, wait to see the highlights of that, see if he celebrated or what. But no, I mean, Sam Barrett as well to be on the score sheet. It's great for him. He wasn't playing too much football at Barnet. He's a fan favourite at York Road. Really good player, really, really nice guy as well. It just seemed like a good result all round for them at the weekend. And like I said, it might not put them a huge distance away from the drop zone, or it might not do a great deal in the grand scheme of things at the moment. It's a win that they can build upon and a performance they can build upon. So
yeah. I mean, it's as you say, it's a tough league. It's a very important win because I mean, if they hadn't won, they'd have only been 2 points above the drop zone today, sort of thing. So and even there's no side this season who's are getting cut off. Even Oxford City, who are bottom of the table, are only 3 points from safety at the moment. Kidderminster Harriers, who are second bottom, are on a 3-game winning run, and even Fylde are 10 points for their last 4. So the sides at the bottom there are really in it and battling to stay up. So I mean, a lot of teams can get dragged into it, and it's really important to pick up those wins, I think. So the weekend was a great result, but again, Neil, it's a big result against one of the top teams after sort of perhaps struggling against teams maybe around them or lower down in the table.
Yeah, I think seasoned Maidenhead watchers would say it's been this sort of typical week, really, in terms of lose at home to 4th bottom, beat 4th top. Albeit the Ebbsfleet game last Tuesday, Maidenhead should have won that game. Never mind drawing it. There were plenty of really good chances, and that just felt like a real pivotal 6-pointer. With Ebbsfleet being one of those teams just under the dotted line now, and they've lost their manager this week as well. The German manager Dennis Kutrieb has left, so that was his last win. He then went to Oxford City, who won. They weren't great results overall on Saturday elsewhere, so it was important. and it's one you look at and think, oh, blimey, we can't score against Ebbsfleet. We haven't scored in 4 games. And the piece of magic from Sam Barrett wraps it up. And then we had, even later in the game, a player I'm sure has probably caught Josh's eye, Sam Beckwith, the other Sam, making an unbelievable clearance off the line. It's those small margins, like the game I saw last night, the Wokingham game. Wokingham score first, they could go on and win it. The Solihull game, I think Maidenhead deserved to win overall. But without Sam's wonder strike and a bit of acrobatics at the end, it could easily be the other way around. So lots of work to do still. Big game on Saturday up at York.
Yes.
So, they're in and around it. And I think, avoiding defeat there is important. But there's work to do. They're in good shape. But other teams are starting to put a run together now. And the Kidderminster 3 in a row, I mean, that's sort of halfway towards really getting out of it, isn't it? If you can put runs like that together, you've got a good chance. A new manager momentum there. So there's plenty to look at below us, and they can't afford to take it easy. It's still a tricky situation, but they play like they did Saturday, they'll have every chance. So fingers crossed they can keep that form up.
Yep. Very good. And yeah, we look forward to the York game. That's got to be one of the nicer places to visit in the National League, I presume, Neil.
Yeah, it's a very nice stadium, all-seater, lovely city as well. So yeah, it still feels like they still feel like cup ties to me. Those big games against Chesterfields and Yorks and Southend's and teams like that. It's great to visit those venues, and it's a double-edged sword actually with those kind of grounds, because last year we won at York, and the locals were not happy. So it's a big crowd in there, and if they're on top, it can become a bit of a cauldron. If you get ahead of them or frustrate them, they can get on the team's back. So I'm hoping for the latter again on Saturday and take something home after the game. That would be an important point to keep a team around us at arm's length, as it were. So a big game, I think, that one.
Very much so. Okay, so moving on again to another side, another division. We're really covering a breadth of teams today, but one side that you've been watching quite closely, Joshua, is Slough Town this season. You were over at Dover on Saturday, I believe, and Slough have been going quite well, although as in typical fashion, they've been on a great run, and we bring you in just as they've lost to one on the weekend, unfortunately, against Dover, and then obviously a tough game away at Yeovil last night. But overall, Slough looking quite good in the National League South over the past couple of months.
Yeah, I think Scott Davies might think I'm a bit of an unlucky omen. I jump on the coach to Dover at the weekend and they lose, and then they've lost again. It's I mean, look, they've had a great run recently. Obviously, beating Maidstone, which obviously isn't easy, as we've seen in the FA Cup, and obviously a draw against Worthing. And you're thinking, wow, okay, well they've done the bits against the teams way above them. Dover next, that's pretty comfortable, and Yeovil was a free hit. But I think this Dover result at the weekend might have impacted more than they'd sort of admit, really. I mean, going down there to the Crabble, I mean, it was such a dull affair for the first 20 minutes, I'll be honest. It was a really quite a game that was played in the middle of the park. There weren't many chances. The ground's the same for both sides, right? It can't be an excuse made. But, at Slough Town, there's a reason why they've got this lengthy unbeaten record at home. They're playing on a nice surface. The football's a lot nicer and suits the players they've got. But yeah, as I say, at the Crabble, I mean, it was just so hard for them to sort of get some shots off, and before you know it, it was, a couple of points dropped, right? That they've lost there, and then wanting to move on quickly to last night against Yeovil. And by all accounts, I mean, they played pretty well against Yeovil, and maybe should have got something at 2-1, maybe made it 2-2, and then who knows? But yeah, I mean, they won't be panicking at the moment, because they're, if anything, looking at the playoffs, they won't admit that, but that's what their objective is. Then I don't think they'll get relegated this season. Definitely not now. If you look at the points gap between them and where they are, but it's I guess they've got Scott Davies told me at the weekend. They've got a pretty fully strength team now, and that they're blessed with the fact that they haven't got many Tuesday night matches, so they can go Saturday to Saturday using their strongest lineup, and that's something that will have to be crucial if they are going to sort of keep pushing up this league. So disappointing couple of results recently, but I have faith they'll bounce back and hopefully extend a bit of a lengthy home record this weekend.
Yeah, you allude to this weekend. They've got a home game against Weston-super-Mare, a side pretty close to them in the table, I believe. In fact, one place and 1 point below them. So the kind of sides you want to be picking up points against, you want to be winning against at home, and pushing yourselves towards that playoff or those sort of 6 playoff places that are up for grabs there. Do you? If I was to put you on the spot now, Joshua, would you back them for a run into the playoffs? I know it's a tricky one to answer, but they've been looking fairly strong over the past couple of months.
Yeah, I probably would, because they have got a quite strong team at the moment. Nobody looks, unless something happened last night I'm not aware of, they look like they haven't got many serious injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going from Saturday to Saturday, so they're going to have the opportunity to rest. They're going to have the opportunity to work on a few things that have gone wrong in previous matches. So I do back them to go quite far, but I mean, it is dependent on other results as well. And like you said, Saturday's huge. If Western win, I think they go above them.
Yes.
And if Slough win, they go further away from them. So they can. I think they will. I'd like to keep my fingers crossed and say they will break it. Whether or not they'll go far in the playoffs remains to be seen, but it'll be an achievement nonetheless for a team that only set out to really survive this season. To try and establish themselves in the league. They're going to sort of to push promotion or be talked about reaching those sort of playoff spots is a bit of an achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. There's only a couple of wins between them and Averley in 5th. So, it's there's a lot of teams there. So, I mean, that's good and bad in a way. A couple of wins will get you up there, but there's also a lot of teams that are sort of involved in that playoff picture. Playoff picture. So it's a tricky one. But I mean, with the home form going as it is, they've got a chance, haven't they? So.
And they have some. I mean, Johnny Goddard. I don't know if. Well, let's hope he'll be there at the end of the season. But he's been remarkable. So
Yes.
good amount of contributions he's had this season. So I mean, but he's not at the end of the day. He's not single-handedly firing them to these playoff positions. It's a whole team effort. We saw last night. Dan Bayliss came up with a goal. Temi Awaka, formerly of Maidenhead United, could have scored against Dover. He had some really good shots as they were pushing for a bit of a point at the weekend. But they just seem like a really well-balanced side, and they deserve to be where they are at the moment.
I think that's a good shout. Well balanced, aren't they? I saw them at home against Maidstone a couple of weeks back, and I was impressed. I think they play at a good tempo. They've got good outlets. They play with good width. The 2 centre halves, Bayliss and Temi, are going to head every ball away, and proper defenders. A good goalkeeper in Dan Lincoln, who's experienced. I think that the Dover game will just go down as one of those that happens during a season, doesn't it? And Yeovil are home and hosed already, practically at the top of that division. So no disgrace in losing there. They do need to pick up some points away from home, and that's gone a little bit awry recently. But they are absolutely invincible at home, aren't they? I believe it's 15 unbeaten.
Yeah,
and I thought they looked by far the better side against Maidstone overall, albeit Maidstone may have been looking at the Ipswich game the following week potentially, but no, that's no excuse. It's a good win against a top 7 side. They'll definitely be in the playoff places, Maidstone, and if they can keep winning those home games and chip away and get a bit of luck away from home and pick up some points. So I really like Goddard. I've seen him play at National League level. I think he's a really handy player. And I wouldn't say they're necessarily the complete package, but they are a good side and they have good balance. They play some decent stuff and they're going to be a handful. I don't think any team will think, oh, good, we're playing Slough. They've got something about them. I really like the left back as well. Tyrese Dice, I think he looks a very good player as well. I think they've got some talent there, and Davies is doing a brilliant job.
Well, I've been asked about how the coach journey back was, because after a loss, especially one that far south, you think, oh gosh, awkward coach back, a bit of a somber mood. But the players are all in high spirits, and I think that one goes down to the fact it wasn't a demolition. They didn't go down there and get absolutely pumped 4-0 or anything like that. But also because they know they can bounce back, because they know that they're guaranteed at this present time. I suppose you could say they're guaranteed a result on home turf, and then they'll think, well, actually, Yeovil, like Scott said, is a free hit. So if they got anything there, it would have been remarkable. But yeah, they'll probably look at this weekend and think, well, actually, guys, we'll probably get something this weekend, or we'll got a very good chance of it. So yeah, there's no point being too down about a loss to Dover, who already beaten them early in the season anyway. So it's just one of them.
What was great about the Maidstone game as well, there was 4,000 people, 1,000 people in full figures. And you just think, considering what they've had in the relatively recent past of not playing in the town and slipping down, they were step 4, weren't they, at some point, Rob? I think they were slipped down to step 4 and were playing outside of the town. A good vibrancy about the place, good support. We know they've got a good fan base and a good pedigree from being in the National League back in the sort of 80s and 90s. So it just feels like there's a feel-good factor around the place. And Scott and Ashley Smith, who's chairman there now, they're putting something good together. And look, it might not be this year, might not be next year, but they're going to be knocking on the door, I think, and a team to watch over the next few years, I think.
Absolutely, and it's good to see that sort of just building like season on season. And we spoke about it perhaps with Holyport in a similar way. There's sort of a few levels below that, but it's good to see these teams that are sort of putting together something and building on it each season, which is certainly what's happening at Slough. So it's great to see, and long may it continue. Well, before we look ahead to, actually, there's a couple of things left on the agenda. But before we look ahead to the weekend's games, we've just been talking about a side who's got a great home record. We just want to touch on another side who got a fantastic home record, but unfortunately their away record is really letting them down at the moment, which is Bracknell Town. Sort of mid-table in the Southern Premier League South at the moment, but their recent home form has been pretty good. They've taken, I believe it's 28 points for their last 12 games at home, but away from home, they've only taken 1 point in their last 8 games. So really, really struggling on the road. And in fact, one of the worst teams in the division on the road. Neil, I'd come to you first on this one. It's really odd when you see these sort of big differences between home form and away form. We've just spoken about Slough having a really good pitch at home, the artificial surface, something that's perhaps could lead to a good home form as Slough are experiencing. Do you think that's playing into the results here? Because Bracknell being very good at home, perhaps on the surfaces that aren't quite as neat and tidy as you get at Bottom Meadow, struggling a little bit. Is it as simple as that, or is there something more to it, do you think?
I think there's probably a little bit of that, isn't there? But it might be slightly psychological as well. Don't forget that the manager's not been there long either, has he? So there's still a little bit of transition. But some of those away results have been a little bit sticky, haven't they? It was Hayes last night who have been without a win for a while, and they were in the bottom 4. So that's one you think, oh, blimey, that's okay. Only 3-2. It's not like they've been hammered. No. But before that, they got well beaten at Beaconsfield recently, didn't they? Which was one I think they were probably expecting a bit better out of. Well beaten. In terms of 3-0, I think scoreline in that one. Mm-hmm. So they're not pretty results, are they, on the face of things? And they're in that kind of limbo of, if we put 2 or 3 wins together, we're right on the cusp of the playoffs. Well, they're not doing that, are they? They're getting the home results and struggling away from home. So it could be a few factors there. It could be perhaps they're used to playing on the good meadow, the good service at Bottom Meadow, and they've go to other places less familiar. It becomes psychological again, I think, and again, I do think the manager, he's finding his feet, isn't he? I know he's been involved. He's not new to the club, but he's finding his feet in terms of being number 1 there. So it's probably a combination of things. It could be a season for them of a bit of transition. It's hard when you change management halfway through a season. There's normally a reason for that somewhere, isn't there? So,
Yeah.
that would suggest a side that's not quite where it needs to be. But, they're certainly a sort of top 8 or top 10 side, I think, Rob. I've not seen them this season. So I can't comment on, the qualities they have and what they don't have. But, on paper, they look perhaps a bit too inconsistent for the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe. I've seen them a couple of times, but actually I have to say not since they've changed their manager. So, there's probably going to be quite a few differences to how they play and how they line up now. Yeah, you're exactly right. They're in that limbo stage, and perhaps a team in a bit of transition. They did so well last season to get to second in the league and, miss out on perhaps the automatic promotion fairly late on. I think that was such an overachievement almost that this is sort of maybe, I don't know, just trying to find their feet at step 3 a little bit and just sort of leveling out.
I think as well, there's a little bit of uncertainty behind the scenes now with the chairman's sort of, position. And although he's, I'm sure, fully committed as long as he's there. Another one they lost that was Didcot, wasn't it? So they've had, just thinking, so that's really some really difficult results away from home, as you say. I think it's almost they're a victim of their own success, aren't they? Because that brilliant season last year, FA Cup run, that was a great night against Ipswich. I thoroughly enjoyed getting along to that one. Playoff final was agonising, wasn't it? We're all hoping they would get up to step 2, which would have been absolutely brilliant locally. So perhaps, supporters and people connected could be a little disappointed because of how well they did last year. Football doesn't work like that, does it? There's no smooth kind of trajectory. Things will happen. Things will change. So, there's no reason why I should write the season off. 100%. They're well up there. And, if they do suddenly click away from home, they're right in it. And I'm sure they'll be right in it until sort of March, April. But whether they can put that run together remains to be seen.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of teams we're looking at this moment, and it's an interesting time of season just to see how these teams perform, sort of across the board, really, across the steps, and thinking, there's a few that could go up, or maybe get sucked in the other way, or start drifting. So yeah, it's interesting to see, and you hope that these sides will actually start putting a run together and push for the playoffs or push for promotion or whatever it is they intend to do. So another one to watch. But last thing we had to talk about before we just briefly look ahead to the weekend's games is the Maidenhead women's side. Sadly, out of the cup at the weekends, that was. You're gonna have to help me with the name of the cup here.
It's
Neil.
the FA Women's National League Plate.
That's the one. Yeah,
quite a mouthful. So that's kind of they have a League Cup. They have like a determining round as to whether you go into the League Cup or the League Play. It's quite a good system, really, because it gives more cup games and more fixtures. The women had a good run of it, but unfortunately, it came to an end at the weekend. They beat Chelsea and they beat Haywards Heath to get to the quarterfinals. We've got a good crowd in at York Road for that one. We had well over 100 people in. But it was, again, frustration, I think, is the word there. I think Ed, our manager, was a little frustrated. Just one of those where there weren't chances, really either way. And Cambridge United took it with a penalty kick midway through the second half, and it was always going to be one of those ones sort of decided by a moment of a little mistake leading into a under-hit back pass, and the goalkeeper was committed, and the penalty was, a no-brainer and was scored. So that was the run over, which is a shame for Ed and the team. They were really looking forward to it. Again, I've said this before on the pod. The way the fixtures work out in women's football at that level, they don't have the consistency in fixtures as you would in men's football at sort of tier 4. That's only their second game of the calendar year, and I think it must be hard to get a momentum going. And they've been free scoring, so it was an unusual blank for them. But they've got some big games coming up. They need still some more points on the board to make sure they stay at that level. They've got to go to Portishead on Sunday, and they got a result that was a very positive one for them against a high-flying Moneyfields team. So that, on paper, would be one we'd look at perhaps and need to get something out of. But they're clearly a decent side if they can get something out of Moneyfields. Then a home game the following Sunday against Bridgewater. So I think they just have to forget about cups now and sort of shrug that off, put that behind them. One that got away, perhaps. Cambridge drew a home match against Barnsley in the semi-finals. That would have been fantastic. But there you go. It's what if, and that's what football is sometimes, isn't it? The what ifs. So one that got away, perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah. Joshua, you've been watching the Maidenhead women's side a little bit over the course of the season. We've been talking about them on the pod as being sort of much improved. Is that how you see it this season? And what do you think they can potentially achieve over the next few weeks in the league?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, watching them from afar, I guess. I mean, and perhaps not going to as many games as we would like. But yeah, like Neil said, I mean, the consistency, unfortunately, isn't there for them. I think Neil, before they lost at the, recently, was it sort of 7th of January they played when they won 8-0 against Chelsea? So you're looking at that and you're thinking, what a bloody good win they had against Chelsea there. And you're thinking, oh, well, they're going to bounce and, next result will be a good one because, can be full of confidence again. I mean, I mentioned it multiple times during this podcast, but confidence is such a big thing in football. And especially I feel like in women's football as well, they want to sort of impress and they want to, the crowds that come see them. But to have that break between that league match and that cup match or the plate match recently, it probably didn't do them any good. I know it was a narrow victory, but so yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think that they will do good things this season. Jackson Norris seems like a really good guy, really good manager, really good coach for the girls and the guys playing there. But yeah, we'll wait and see, I suppose. It's just whether they can get a bit of a run of matches together and build a bit of momentum and see where that takes them, I guess.
Absolutely. They've got a few games against teams sort of like you mentioned, Neil, are kind of around them in the table. Portishead a point ahead. Them Bridgewater maybe 5 ahead, but also having played games more than Moneyfields, 5th compared to Maidenhead's 9th. So, chances to sort of put some points on the board, I guess. Or Moneyfields might be a very tricky one, but the other two for sure are chances to get a few more points on the board. And when that happens, you can sort of hope to maybe push into the top half of the table, I think. And maybe that's sort of what they've got. They've got one eye on that for the rest of the season, would you say?
That was Ed's pre-season sort of challenge to his team. I want us to be a mid-table team. They've been, even before he came, they were a side that would stay up by default. You stay up for deserving to stay up, but they would need to put together a little end of seasons run. I remember one season they had to win their last 2 games, and they did so and stayed up. So it's that kind of thing where they've been used to being a struggling side in a really tough league, where there's some sides that are able to put some real money into it, which is great for women's football. But in terms of their ambitions, I think he'd be happy with middle of the table, and they're kind of on course to do it. But proof is in the pudding. They've got to win some of these games against the teams kind of in the bottom half and see where they're at in maybe a month's time.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, again, more teams to look forward to and look at in the Berkshire system over the next few months. If you're looking to get a game, there's always some intrigue this time of season, whether it's a relegation battle or teams looking to improve on previous seasons. There's always a narrative somewhere that you can pick that out, and some great football to watch on Saturdays and Sundays. And with that in mind, Joshua, are you at a game this weekend? Or if not, is there a particular game that you like the look of and you sort of advise people to go to over the course of the weekend?
So I think there's a choice of 2 here. I think Virginia Water, Flackwell Heath. I think that'd be quite a
good choice.
Yeah, Flackwell Heath are a team we cover at the paper, and they just recently lost in a bit of a top of the table clash in their league. And so they'll want to bounce back pretty quickly because they'll want to get, establish that second place and promotion for themselves this season. The other one, obviously, being Slough Town West Supermare, like you said earlier. It's a battle in the middle of the table. Whoever wins that, it's beneficial to both sides, isn't it? One can leapfrog the other, one could move away from the other a bit further. So yeah, that's what I have my eye on right now, and it'd be interesting to see if Slough Town can extend this formidable league run or formidable home league run to something like 16 matches. So yeah, they're the two I have my eye on at the moment.
Absolutely. Neil, you'll be up at York, I presume, a big game for Maidenhead there for sure. But with that one sort of taken for granted, taken as read, is there anything else this season this weekend you'd like to sort of highlight in terms of games that people should look out for?
Hopefully, I'll go down and watch our women play at Portishead on Sunday. That's a big game for them, but we've said enough about Maidenhead on this pod. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a big one for Wokingham, isn't it? As we said, they're at Chalfont St Peter. I'd be interested to see how they. I think if I was going anywhere, had a free afternoon, I think I'd have a look at that one. I think that they need to start getting some wins now. Chalfont is one they'll need to target, and I think that's an important game for them. I think they need to get something out of that one to set them up for the games coming up. So that would probably be on my list. I think. Tom, are you going anywhere?
I'm going to Inter Milan versus Juventus in San Siro. Slightly different vibe to the games we're mentioning at the moment. So yeah, it's slightly different. But yeah, I'd probably, if it was up to me, I'd probably look at a division we haven't mentioned, the Combined Counties Division 1. There's a lot of Berkshire interest in the promotion chase there. Amersham are sort of a little bit away from it with that top spot. The playoff places, there's currently 3 Berkshire-linked sides in the playoffs and 1 just outside. And the team in second is Berks County, and they're hosting Amersham this weekend at Ascot. Yeah. So Berks County, Amersham, second hosting first. If Berks County have got any aspirations to chase down Amersham, that's a game they'll be looking to get all 3 points.
You have to cancel your flight tickets, Tom. I think.
Well, I'm only going out Sunday morning, so if I've done enough chores around the house, maybe I'll get the chance to go out on Saturday as well.
Good.
Very good indeed. Well, that's about it from us this week. Of course, if there's any other fixtures you want to go and see, please head down to the Football in Berkshire website. We've got a full list of all the games in Berkshire, and you can take your pick from anything from all the fixtures, home or away, involving Berkshire sides. But apart from that, please check us out on all the usual social media channels. Just search for Football in Berkshire across Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and so on, and you will find us there. But with that, we are ending this pod. Thank you very much for listening, and I have to say thank you very much to my 2 guests for joining us this week. Joshua from the Maidenhead Advertiser, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for having me, Rob. Appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. And thank you, Neil, for joining us. As again, always good to get your insight on local football and Maidenhead more specifically. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will be back again with a new pod episode next week. So until then, goodbye.